the example they gave for custom click ads was other marketplaces. So if you do want to run ads to your app, which is not on the App Store, which I've personally yet to see another app store. I'm not in Europe, but hopefully I'll get to one soon. But let's say you have another app store and you want to run ads to that app store, you would use a custom click ad. But then the question that goes in everybody's mind is, well, if you got a different app store, do they have to even use SKAN?
What is Apple's new ad attribution kit, and does it really matter? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. This is Junkets here. This is a very special Growth Masterminds episode. It's right after the week of WWDC, and we've all been looking at AdAttributionKit, aka SKAN 5, and saying, hey, how does it work? What's new? What's different? What's changed? All that stuff. Well, I had the chance to dive deep into that on a LinkedIn Live with Singular CEO Gadi Eliashiv and Singular CTO Eran Friedman. And here is what we said. Enjoy. Eran, why don't you kick us off with the big picture? What is this new ad attribution kit?
Okay, so basically, ad attribution kit is the new version of SKAN. So SKAN bye-bye, and now ad attribution. SKAN 5, or however you'd like to call it, it's just the next version that Apple now to replace SKAN.
It's super interesting. I mean, because we saw a notification about SKAN 5 in the last WWDC. We haven't seen anything about it. We've all had questions and concerns about adoption of SKAN, especially SKAN 4 over the last 2 years. It was released in 2022. Now we have a new version. So we're going to talk about all that stuff, including adoption, everything. But let's start with here. What's new? What's different? Gadi, kick us off with one or two things that are new and different, and then we'll go to Eran for a couple more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe the first thing is the fact that a lot of what they've done in the last 6 to 12 months is support for multiple app stores. And you've kind of seen it across the board from even like new APIs to the app store that provide more data. And then this was sort of a logical extension because SKAdNetwork, SK means for StoreKit, which kind of means Apple's app store. And they wanted to open it up for multiple marketplaces, which is their name for a third-party app store, right? So I think that's one of the main things. And then the other thing we've been looking for that was kind of touted as SKAN 5, and now it's in AAK, is the support for Reengagement. So being able to determine this user had installed the app, they didn't remove it, but they came back to it because of a marketing activity, which is something that marketers wanted.
Yeah, re-engagement. We've been looking for that for a very, very long time. What else is new, Eran?
Yeah, so I think those are really like the big changes, I would say, like the big features. And then there's like some more advanced nuances and changes that they've introduced in AdAttributionKit. One, for example, which is really interesting, is in the session they call it like the support for like different creative types or ad interaction types. They basically, there's like a bunch of actually previous features that existed in SKAN, but they have revamped these. They've kind of reorganized these and said which use cases you can actually use AdAttributionKit, and basically provide like this table of what would happen if you use it in different ways with SKOverlay, with view through ads, with click through ads. You can probably dive into that like in a few minutes, but basically they clarified a lot of the different use cases that you can use the AdAttributionKit. And maybe just one more thing, that's again, smaller thing, but definitely very exciting for me personally, is historically SKAN has been really difficult to debug, troubleshoot. Basically, if you're a developer, then it's kind of like a black box. It's hard to see what's going on. And they had like this way that you can download the certificate, you can install on the device. You try to shorten some of the timers. It's a really complicated process. And now they made it much more easier. If you're an Apple developer, you can literally go to settings of your iPhone and say your AdAttributionKit developer, and then like all the timers get shorter and make it much easier to troubleshoot. So it's kind of nuanced, but definitely for the developers there, I think it's going to be huge.
That is absolutely huge because, of course, we're going to talk about adoption later, right? And adoption requires development, testing, all that stuff. And when it takes a long time to test and you're not sure if it's right, and we've seen it in the past where SKAdNetwork has been launched by networks and there's been failures, there's been issues. Now it should be better. There's also a concept of deep links, right? Universal links for the re-engagement campaigns. That's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. A deep link to a specific section of your app. So if you're doing something that's cool, a contest or something, an event in your app or something like that, you can put ads out there for people who already have the app and they can go right to that. That's kind of cool. And we also noted that fidelity type, which is whether it's a click or a view, has been renamed to add interaction type. It's not in the documentation yet. We saw that in the video. There's a lot more to chat about there. We'll probably do a separate session on a lot of that stuff because that matters when we get right down to it. But those are the big things. Gadi, maybe kick us off. What's the same? I mean, I jokingly called it SKAN 5. It kind of is SKAN 5. What's the same as, let's say, SKAN 4?
Yeah, I think they wanted to maintain backward compatibility. So a lot of the main mechanisms, like the first postback, the second postback, the third postback, the windows, I think a lot of that stayed the same. One thing I'm not sure, maybe Eran knows from the structure standpoint. So like they keep mentioning those Java web not Java, JSON web signature, JWS. And I wonder if the format is slightly different. Like, will a SKAN 4 postback look different than an AAK postback? I mean, it should, because some fields are just named differently. But they kind of make it seem like you will still maintain compatibility, right? So if you have an app that shows an ad using the SKAN API, I assume it's still gonna work, but will you get an AAK postback? So I don't know, Ron, if you guys had thoughts on that or like how it's gonna look like.
I did read that, and you can only get one.
Yep.
Go ahead,
You're
Eran.
interoperable. Yeah, exactly. So one of the principles, John, you're right, is that both APIs are interoperable. You can see and add attribution kit when it would work with like SKAN conversion values and vice versa. But yeah, I think definitely the postback format, whatever is sent. So it does require to get postback for ad attribution kit. You need to both render an ad attribution kit, and I believe you should also have basically an iOS 17.4 and use that attribution kit API. I think otherwise you won't get an ad attribution postback, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, then the format does change a bit. So anyone who's, I guess, ingesting these SKAN postbacks, they would need to now implement support for that slightly different format of ad attribution kit for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I notice we're getting a few comments, so I might throw a few of those on screen as we go. Here's one from Naresh. Is it already live? I believe the AAK was in iOS 17.4. We didn't talk about it a lot back then, but it actually came out back then. It is an iOS 18 launch item. So, it can't be live just like SKAN 4 until lots goes on in the ecosystem, on the ad network side, on the advertiser side, on the MMP side. There's a lot of things. I'm answering as if I'm Eran. Why the heck don't I just ask Eran to answer that?
Yeah. No, but you got it right. Like, first of all, Ad Attribution Kit as an API, like you said, it already exists from iOS 17.4. It kind of like released it, I guess, more
Secretly.
in a more hidden way. Yeah, that's Apple. But it was introduced to support alternative marketplaces. So that actually supported already from iOS 17.4, already in production. But technically, if an ad network, like you said, supports it on the publisher side and the MFP support and ads that support it, you can get an Ad Attribution Kit postback. That's already good. They did make changes in iOS 18. So they did add some, again, the Reengagement support and some nuances there. So there's going to be more things to be added once iOS 18 is live, and that's going to take a while, probably like about a month from now. But yeah, technically, if you do the work to support it, you should be able to activate Ad Attribution Kit already in iOS 17.4.
Yeah, it's hard to praise the API and by the pace that normally the industry moves, because these are really monumental changes. I assume people will probably end up using the new API that's available in iOS 18 and beyond. I think we saw like this new struct where you can use, and then you could specify also for re-engagement, stuff like that. Because if I remember correctly, 17.4 did not specify how retargeting worked, right? They didn't have that yet. So you got AAK without retargeting. So I think no one would, why would I switch to this? It's kind of like SKAN 4, but the weird, right? So maybe now is the right time to start using it.
Absolutely. Okay, we're starting to get more questions up. We're going to talk about adoption in a bit as well. Yeah, we don't expect that much difference, Guy or Guy, however you pronounce your first name. So we're going to get into more details on that. And I noticed that there's some really interesting questions coming up which we will also get into when we talk about adoption. So I'll bring that comment back up then. Before we do that, we have to go deeper on retargeting. I mean, this has been, if it's not the #1 requested missing feature of SKAdNetwork, it's up there. It's top 3 for sure. Eran, maybe let's start with you. How important is this? Give us some details, how it works and all that stuff.
Okay, so maybe I'll start with like, what exactly does it mean, like supporting retargeting or supporting re-engagement? So first of all, and maybe we'll talk later on about comparison with like Privacy Sandbox and what's happening on Android, but focus on iOS for a second. Apple has focused on measuring re-engagement. So they're not like enabling you to like retarget based on anonymous ladies or anything like that. It's only talking about the fact that if you have a re-engagement campaign, how you would be able to measure it and send posts back to them accordingly. Now,
Which is around, sorry, I think we should double click on this for a second. You know, as a lot of people know, with IDFA going away, one of the outcries was like, how am I going to do retargeting, right? And then in Privacy Sandbox, there is a solution to kind of find users based on an audience and stuff like that. This is not a solution for this. This is a measurement solution. So assuming you found some way to do retargeting effectively, that's up to you. Then how would you measure it?
Or you just threw a million ads out there and somehow some of them go to somebody who you had before.
Which, by the way, naturally happens, right? So like you could, you know, especially with less, you know, accurate targeting, you show ads to people that already have your app.
Okay, so we understand that the focus is on the measurement side, not enabling kind of, again, targeting on these users. But let's say you have these campaigns running, then first of all, what you need to do is when you show that network, if you're the publisher, you need to basically configure it and say that it's eligible for re-engagement, meaning this can support re-engagement. It can be in addition to app installs or just like focus on re-engagement. And you would also configure a universal link, which is really cool. That's what you mentioned about the link. So you can say, when I play the ad, it supports re-engagement. And if the user would click that ad, that only if the user would click it, then if the app is already installed, it would be directly linked to that universal link you've configured. So deep linked into the app, and it would trigger a re-engagement conversion flow. So from that point, once the app is open, assuming it was on the device, then you have like all those standard mechanism of SKAN, or like the random timers with 3 conversion values and so forth, 3 prospects with conversion values and so forth, but from the re-engagement time. So just pausing there on like what it means that if you're running re-engagement campaign, you would be able to, first of all, link directly to that if you have like a promotion or something that for your existing users, which is kind of cool. And you would be able to get measurement based on AdAttributionKit on how many re-engagement you got and what was the resulted action from that re-engagement, purchases, the revenue coming from your re-engagement campaign. Making sure everything there is clear.
Yeah, and maybe one thing that's interesting is, let's contrast it for a second with what we had before. Right? So like, what would happen before? Before you'd run an ad and people with your app would click on it, right? And then you're not going to get SKAN measurement, right? So like the main benefit is now you finally have a way to kind of attribute those re-engagements where you didn't have that before. Now if you were, you know, to be fair, if the marketer knew that he's marketing to people that have the app, he could have put a deep link before directly in the ad, right? So, and then back in the IDFA days, this wasn't a problem because you could just use universal links in your ads, and they would either go to the app store or they would go directly to the app. So in a way, Apple's sick in what they put, right? Because it was good for a while, broke. Now it's kind of fixed again, right? At least the flow of being able to do that.
That makes sense. Absolutely. I did show this earlier from Marcelo. Do we know if the re-engagement postback requires a certain time of user inactivity? As far as I've seen in the docs, there's nothing about that whatsoever. So, you know, you can do it whenever you want. As Ron said, you got an event or in-app event or something like that, you can go for it. I also saw this come up. Is there anything? Go ahead.
Sorry, John, I just add on this because I think it's a really good point by Marcelo. Like, based on the existing docs, like a big topic also we've discussed internally, based on the existing docs, it doesn't have a user inactivity window, which can cause all kinds of weird cases if you think about it. Like for example, if the user sees basically, I don't know, like sees an install ad and like downloads it, like clicks it, downloads that, but didn't open it even. But then they see a re-engagement ad before they even open the app. They click it and they get deep link to the app. Then you may have scenarios in which you would get both an install and a re-engagement postback, basically, for the same activity in a sense, because there's lack of user activity window. So I really hope that there would be maybe some kind of an activity window for engagement, but right now there's no evidence for such a thing.
It would almost seem that you'd need something like an IDFA to do that, Eran. I don't know.
Or just improve our AAK. I mean, this is a common theme, right? You see a lot of, as soon as they wanted to perform more attribution on device, they are now owning all the fine parameters and the lack of ability to control attribution windows. That's another thing that annoys people, right? And it's kind of fixed. So I guess, I doubt we're going to see anything flexible. We're probably going to get, hopefully there is documentation. Otherwise, we're probably going to figure it out via testing. But yeah, and then another problem is around what you mentioned, super interesting. Another example is, what if I installed and then a day later, somebody, maybe he's lazy and AdNetworks didn't even figure out that they have the app installed. Maybe you still saw an ad from somewhere else, and then you're going to click it again, and then, it's just going to cause a lot of unnecessary retargeting, which is a problem. They do have this mechanism where when you report the conversion value, you could select, am I updating information about this user as if they're retargeted or as if they're an install or both? So maybe that's where there'll be more complexity or more sophistication on how we handle conversion models.
Everybody likes more sophistication. Nobody likes more complexity, but somehow they tend to go hand in hand, don't they? There was also this comment here from LinkedIn user. Anything new around fingerprinting privacy manifest? No, I mean, pretty much the same. Nothing new around privacy manifest. There was an additional sort of warning about not using this in conjunction with fingerprinting. But yeah, pretty much same old there. I do want to get into creative types or engagement types because Apple's...
John, just one. Sorry.
Go ahead.
On retargeting, there was an interesting question about, so you could specify a deep link, right? But what's stopping you from passing whatever parameters you want in the deep link? Now, Apple has a mechanism in Safari, whenever they have links with PCM, they're trying to kind of strip out things like gclid and UTM params maybe and stuff like that. But then that another cat and mouse. And also, this is an OS level update. They're not going to move as fast as Safari. So like, maybe this means that when you're doing retargeting, you can have user level attribution. I think that's an interesting question, right? Like you could pass some information there. How are they going to govern the deep link? By the way, you could have done that today. You could send someone an email with a deep link. They click on it, they came from the email. Like it's not, nothing new, but the fact that it's now slightly more bundled in SKAdNetwork and more convenient means that all your re-engagement campaigns might have user level tracking. So that is interesting. And I wonder how and if they're going to enforce anything there.
I'm going to guess that if it's part of AAK, they're going to find some way of stripping that out. But that's just a guess right now. Also have a question here from Nadav. Is it true that it won't operate with fingerprinting? Well, it doesn't know about fingerprinting. It's off in this world. And if you're doing some sort of probabilistic, that's off in another world. So yeah, it won't mention it in the documentation, except say, don't do it, please. I do want to get into creative types or engagement types, and Eran mentioned them earlier. But Apple spent a good chunk of time talking about clickable custom creative as an engagement type, view through ads for like videos and playables, something like that, and a 2-second needing to be on screen. And then also what they called recommendations or recommend ads, which are SKOverlay and SKStore product view controller, where you actually bring up a piece of your app listing on screen in ad. Eran, do you want to go over those in a little more detail? Why do we have these different types? How do they work?
Right. Sure. So actually, a lot of these already existed in SKAdNetwork, but they've made some tweaks in the definitions there and some of the properties. So let's break it down, for example. First, talk about the custom click ads and also the view through ads. So custom click ads is how you can imagine, like if you render some kind of an ad, the user would tap it, then you would get to the iOS, like the Apple App Store or any other marketplace app store for that matter. And then a click would be basically kept for AdAttributionKit. So it's used for a custom creative of any sort that the user has to tap to record the click, and it can lead to either Apple Store or any other app store out there. So that's the first type. The second type is pretty similar. It's called a view thread. It's also meant for like any custom view thread. So the classic example that they described is, let's say you display a video. If the video is displayed for at least 2 seconds, then an impression or view would be tracked. And it can, basically for the next time the user kind of download the app from the store, either again from the app store or a marketplace. It's a great table to kind of explain it. Thank you. So view thread, as you can see, are basically tracking a view for the install and not the click. A custom click ads can track a tap. Basically, then the user click that and got directly to the store. The important thing maybe to note about this, and it wasn't very clear from the session, is you can actually use them together, just to be obvious. So we can render a view thread, say a video, and then if the user clicks it, then obviously you can get redirected to the App Store or Marketplace store, and then you would obviously track first a view and then a click, right? So this is everything around like the custom views and click of ad, and it supports both Apple's App Store and other marketplaces. The next 2 pieces are SKOverlay and SKStore product view controller, and now they focus only on the App Store app. SK, as a reminder, it's kind of like the essentially store kit, and it's just focused on the App Store API. So basically, those are 2 different types of banners, essentially, or ads. SKOverlay is like an overlay ad, sometimes from the bottom or from the top, kind of a smaller one that you can view and then click to get to the store. SKStore product view controller kind of is like more of like an interstitial. Interstitial. It basically shows the entire App Store page, and usually comes after an interaction of some sort. And the thing is that both support both the view and the click, and they go directly to the App Store itself. And I think one of the interesting changes that maybe happened there, like from SKAdNetwork to AdAttributionKit, is about the different behaviors of SKOverlay from the point previously to the next point. I don't know if Gadi you'd like to cover it, or I should cover it too.
No, happy to cover it. And also maybe, John, if we go back to the table, basically what Apple is saying is if you use our App Store, you should totally use the SK types. Like, I don't know why necessarily you wouldn't. And my understanding is the store product view controller, that's basically the full page kind of App Store. It doesn't go to the App Store, but it renders that, right, as a view.
Precisely. Download right from there.
Yeah. So like a classic click flow, right? You see an ad, you click on it, then the App Store opens up. That's the last one, right? And then overlay is a very interesting one, right? It's existed for a very long time. And I think its integration with SKAdNetwork has been a very interesting topic to kind of discuss. So we still want to verify the details, but one of the big differences, and Nebo mentioned that, and it's something that our internal research also apparently kind of ran into questions there, where the documentation is a bit confusing about old SKAdNetwork, but kind of sounded like so SKOverlay is like this banner that you see at the bottom. If you click it, then it kind of goes to half screen, and then it says like double click to install, right? So it's like a slightly different experience from the App Store. You don't see the full product page, if I remember correctly. What was shocking is the documentation make it seem like in SKAN, all you needed to do is just to show the tiny banner at the bottom or the top without the user even clicking for it to register as Fidelity Type 1, which for those of you who remember, kind of the equivalent of a click. Now, it might be a mistake in the documentation. It seems very weird that all it would take is to render an ad, being that it's SKOverlay, but whatever. Why would just showing someone an ad would count as the click? That is very suspicious. So something that we actually want to look into, and we might do a follow-up session, but maybe the TLDR is that this new table and this new ad interaction type should, no matter what was in the past, if it's true, it was a very big issue, This should solve it, because now they're very clearly saying SKOverlay will on view will count as view, on tap will count as click. So hopefully kind of puts an end to this weird behavior, but I thought that was a slightly interesting thing to kind of share.
We can all hope, and hopefully those CTR rates will go back down below 100% somewhere. We'll see how that goes. Ashley Black has this question: are the SK interaction types still a 30-day attribution window? And I believe, and Eran is nodding, the answer is yes.
I mean,
Excellent.
But just to be
Well,
clear, the view
Yeah.
through is for 24 hours and the click through is for 30 days.
Yes.
But it's not
Good.
just SK, right? It's like, so custom click ads, I think, also get 30 days.
Correct. Yes.
And
And the click is
that's a
30
yes.
days and the view is 24 hours.
Now, I want to say one more thing about this. You might wonder, why would anyone use custom click ads or view through ads when they can use the App Store stuff? So it seems like from the video, well, I mean, there might be other uses, but it seems like from the video, the example they gave for custom click ads was other marketplaces. So if you do want to run ads to your app, which is not on the App Store, which I've personally yet to see another App Store. I'm not in Europe, but hopefully I'll get to see one soon. But let's say you have another App Store and you want to run ads to that App Store, you would use a custom click ad. But then the question that goes in everybody's mind is, well, if you got a different App Store, do they have to even use SKAN? I mean, think like Google Play, for example, have a refer mechanism, right? I'm not talking IDFA or anything, that complex. I'm just saying, like, other app stores might have other measurement capability. So I'm curious if this will get adoption. But then again, I've yet to even see another app store. So I'm curious how they would implement their attribution. They might find that this is easy, or maybe they'll just say, oh, we have a better measurement capability. That's our advantage over the app store. Then will Apple allow it? Can they even block remote because they kind of forced it? So very interesting edge cases that might become, imagine all it takes is a few big publishers to say, I'm going to distribute my apps in my own app store. And then what happens?
Then the world becomes very interesting. And then there's not just a competition in app stores, there's a competition in measurement methodologies. And advertisers will vote with their dollars. So we're going to see, yeah, the world is going to get more interesting. Okay, cool. We're going to get to some more questions that have been raised in the comments as well in a moment. I want to quickly hit the two types of ad attribution kits. So we heard that there is ad attribution kit. Say that 5 times fast. Wow. There's also this theoretical construct of web ad attribution kit, which we think is PCM, private click measurement, which comes from WebKit and has been around for some time. But there is no documentation for it right now on the Apple website. I have heard via Little Birdie that it is coming at some point, perhaps, but there's no further information from Apple on that right now. But I was looking for that. We heard about that in the session. Where's the documentation for web ad attribution kit? Haven't seen it yet. Theoretically, it is coming. Okay, there's this big question, and it's been raised in the comments 5-6 times as well around adoption, right? We looked at SKAN4. We've seen various industry pundits say, hey, SKAN4 is a failure. It just hasn't had good adoption. I've had others who say, hey, actually, on the open web, the open app ad ecosystem, AKA not in Meta, not in TikTok, not in Google, I see about 70% of the postbacks coming through that are SKAN4 compatible. So there's kind of there's diverging realities here, right? The question is, what are we going to see? It's time to get out your crystal balls. What are we going to see for AAK for adoption? Maybe Eran will kick it off to you first.
Yeah, I think it's a big question. It's a bit early to tell for sure, but trying to forecast the future. So I think my guess is, if you look at AdAttributionKit, it's not a major leap from SKAN4. Like, essentially, there aren't many changes from there. The slight format changes, and of course, there's new added features, but it doesn't look like a lot of work to make that change. It's nothing compared to the massive amount of work that was required to move from SKAN3 to SKAN4 at the time, right? So I think that anyone who's updated to SKAN4 would still need to go through the entire hassle that we go through every year with the SKAN versions of updating all the editors, updating all the publishers, updating all the advertisers. Like, there's still a massive, I guess, adoption curve the kind of standard there, which usually takes like about 2 years, give or take. But I think that anyone who updated to SKAN4 would find it much easier to update to AdAttributionKit later on. So the bigger question is for the networks who didn't update SKAN4 yet, right, when the adoption is low, whether this would push them to upgrade 2 levels basically to AdAttributionKit. I think that's going to be tougher, but I don't know what Gadi thinks of that.
My POV is, John, you and I worked on the SKAN4 adoption dashboard. If you got it handy, you can screen share. To be honest, I thought by now we could shut down this dashboard because I figured everything's going to be 100%. So after seeing SKAN4 get support adoption, I'm a bit less optimistic. My main question is there going to be some new incentive structure that Apple creates to push networks really to adopt this? Because we're, at least for most MNPs, we always try to be ready. We're ready. And to be fair, we have a lot of work on each version, to be fair, but there's arguably maybe more work on the networks, if we kind of think about it. So I understand why it's taking longer. But is there going to be some incentive structure that's going to push adoption even more? Because with SKAN4 it was barely happening. And also the other thing is some networks kind of send SKAN4 postbacks. It doesn't mean they know how to fully utilize it. So, sometimes even this data might be more optimistic than before. So is there going to be some incentive from Apple, or will the features of AAK be so compelling? Now we just talked about it, like what is going to be different? Well, one is this retargeting feature. Maybe that's going to be so amazing that people want to move to it. And it might be actually, I don't know, maybe networks will do the math and say, so much of my ads go at waste because they're showing to same users, at least I could get some credit for Reengagement. So they want to jump to that. But then the other thing, which is kind of funny if you think, I just thought about it. If the SKOverlay behavior in SKAN is slightly more beneficial in a way for attribution, like if it really does what some people think it does, then that will be a counterweight to people not wanting to upgrade. Now, what might change that is the compatibility mode, right? Like, so if everybody has iOS 18, if it operates like AAK, then it's going to solve that problem. But that's maybe my response is incentives. What are the incentives? That's what you need to analyze, and then you'll see behavior.
There's one more incentive that's really interesting to think about is Apple said, I think in conversations, that AdAttributionKit would eventually replace SKAN. Like SKAN will be deprecated in future iOS versions. So if that happens, that's not for iOS 18, but maybe in iOS 19, for example, it can become deprecated, maybe in iOS 20, well, long from now, it like stops working and you only work with AdAttributionKit. That can be a forcing function for everyone to just have to upgrade.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, like Apple needs to give incentive to the networks. I was thinking more in a positive way, like give them value, but what you're describing is also fair. They could just deprecate the API. That's another way to drive people for adoption. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little more aggressive way of doing it, but it is totally possible. It is, and obviously we've been showing the live SKAdNetwork adoption dashboard on. It is a little depressing to see if we look at adoption trend, and I put all time here. There were times when it popped up, right? And then there was that big bug and adoption went back down, sort of hit the, the 30s to 40s almost, and it's kind of regressed a little bit. And if you look at the network,
just select Meta for a second in the filter on the networks on the right, and then do all time. No, just on the filter, there's another drop down next to it.
Yep, there's Meta right there.
No, you see all networks on the top.
Yes, I do.
Therefore, just select Meta, and then do all time. Yeah, there you go. There were a few happy months there from February to May. And to be fair, we had some customers that were sending a ton of postbacks, so it's kind of skewing this, but there were some active tests on version 4. And Meta is not the only one. A lot of networks is St. Grass. I don't know why they stopped. Maybe they knew AAK is coming and they're going to jump to the next version. Maybe it's proven to be too difficult, but that's kind of what's giving me pause, right? Just those kind of charts makes me wonder if, there's going to be a rush to adopt the new version.
Yeah. I will say about that meta chart, that's almost artistic. I mean, that's kind of modern art right there. And we did have a question or a comment here from Matt, and it is true. The big platforms have been investing in different technologies, whether that is modeling technologies, whether that is conversion APIs, whether that's other technologies that they own or control or at least have influence over to measure their impact for their customers, right? And that's a real deal. It's hard to go away from something that you own and control in order to go to something that somebody else owns and controls. But there is a huge benefit here. I want to turn to you, Eran, given this conversation, given how pivotal SKAN and the essential deprecation of the IDFA, not total, but essential deprecation of the IDFA, how important that's been in iOS. We now have this big shift. What does this mean for the future of measurement on iOS?
Yeah, so I think we're waiting to see if in this WWDC or in iOS 18, there's gonna be like something that's gonna change the equation with different methods that we have. Like right now, we already have like a bit of a mix, right? We have the opt-in users, like based on IDFA, right? All the model networks, like the Meta AEM and TikTok has their own thing, and Snap and Go have their own thing, and then you have like SKAN. And what happened was, I think there weren't any massive news. They're going to change that equation, apparently. So if I had to guess, it seems like for the time being, like in iOS 18, it kind of remained the same with the status quo, and no big news around like I don't know, again, fingerprinting or anything like that. And we're gonna need to live with a mix of data sets, which is what we've been, I guess, like assuming is gonna be the case. So advertisers, like always, they need to play with the case that they have both the opt-in and the network model data and SKAN. That's why I think in Singer we've been very focused on like building this unified view, like joining all the data sets together, throwing them in one place, and coming up with this single metrics to try to reconcile all of these. You can see the unified performance end to end. And I think just this developer conference just validated, I guess, the strategy even further.
Gadi, any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to tell. There's so many forces moving, and it is really a complex reality. I guess, the main themes are, how well can we get last click to be? The other one is how can we use more advanced measurement tools like incrementality or MMM, and then how will other platforms adapt? I think that's another question we have, right? Like, what does it mean for Google, and how will their rollout look like, etc. Do they have any learning? So it is a complex mix, but yeah, you're kind of showing, our approach, we like to call it unified iOS report, unified measurement. We try to make it simple, even though it's not easy. We're trying to build single reports to kind of show you a single pane of glass. And sometimes there is no magic. Like, we can't just say, oh, this is a magic deduping method, because there isn't one. But what we could do is we could show you all the different views and different data points. And we do try to come up with like what we think would be the way to look at things, but not necessarily force it on the customer. I think the days of like a single report for ROI, I mean, you could still do that, but they're not as common anymore. Right? Like, you hear customers talking about alternative methods and multiple views into the data, etc. So these are all things we're, happy to tackle. It's gonna really fits well with our DNA of handling a lot of data, etc. So yeah, just a new reality, I guess.
Absolutely. And it is also a reason why I guess Singular has invested in MMM, why incrementality is increasingly important. You need measurement methodologies that you can use regardless of the data that you can actually access, the trackability that is actually out there. We're coming to the end here. We'll have probably a little bit of time for a few other questions if there are a couple. We should mention Google. We should mention Android. Privacy Sandbox is gaining some momentum. I know Singular is doing some testing with ad networks, with advertisers. How does this fit into the whole reality of Privacy Sandbox and Android? pretty much business as usual, right? I mean, we've just moved forward. We've incremented a little bit on the iOS side. I just wonder if there's any thoughts that come to your mind, Eran.
So first of all, I agree with you. Like it's been an increment on iOS. There's less of an impact, of course, on Android. But I think what I've seen from this update is that Apple is still very focused on the measurement side that we mentioned before. They're trying to use the AdAttributionKit and plan to provide conversion reporting to advertisers and optimization signals to networks. Focus just on that. I think Privacy Sandbox on Android thinks about things more holistically, right? Thinking not just about the attribution reporting, but also about other APIs, topics API, the protect the audience API. You're basically trying to enable all like a much broader set of advertising use cases. So it's just interesting to see kind of the differences in the approaches, and we'll see how also iOS develops and if Google has learned anything from this update.
It will also be very interesting to see if the App Store adopts AAK. I won't hold my breath, but it would be very nice to have sort of one method of measurement across all of iOS that Apple
You mean
supports.
Apple Snowclouds, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Very good, very good. Cool. I have to ask this question. When can we expect Singular to support this new framework? I guess, Eran, that's for you.
Oh man, so our R&D teams are already writing to the details of that doc. We kind of downloaded already iOS 18 and playing around with it. So as always, you can expect it to be always up to date. And the moment iOS 18 is going to be live, you already have your prepared SDK from Singular, so that you can, anyone who wants to play around with it, to be an early adopter, would be able to do that with Singular. That's our goal.
Cool. Awesome. I think we'll hit a couple questions. We don't have a ton of time. We did have this one come up from Grigory. Number of postbacks in SKAN 4 versus SKAN 3. SKAN 3 had 1, SKAN 4 has 3, and AAK has the same 3 as Gadi mentioned, I think, probably before you came on, Grigory. So that's cool. Here's an interesting one from Yoni. Could it be possible a different conversion value schema for re-engagement postbacks? One for install redownloads, one for re-engagement postbacks. Who wants to hit that one?
Seems
I
like
can
the
hit
answer
it.
is D. Sure.
Yes, the answer is definitely yes. And when you update the conversion value, you can actually say this conversion value is for your install and redownloads, or it's for the re-engagement.
Cool. Excellent. Very good. I think we're kind of done. I think we kind of covered it. I know Eran and Gadi, you guys left a little bit, maybe for a future session on what does this look like for the different interaction types for SKStoreKit rendered ads, and how they will be treated in sort of attribution, versus clicks, views in other modalities. Maybe we'll look at that later. I'm not sure. Any last hits before we end this session?
No,
Very good.
good luck to all.
Was that good luck ecosystem? Good luck to everybody. Here we go. New friend.
Here we
I
go
mean, every
again.
WWDC is a fun time. We all get excited. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But last WWDC, you bought an Apple Vision Pro, which
Yes.
then you returned, I think. So
I did return. Unfortunately, I didn't use it enough. The tech was amazing. But WWDC is fun. I mean, this year with all the AI stuff for Apple intelligent stuff is pretty cool, and I can't wait for Siri to stop being so stupid and start working. That will be exciting. Yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for taking this time. Really do appreciate it. Lots of fun. Hope everybody got some good value out of this. And we will share this on the Growth Masterminds podcast. So if you just came in late, hey, the whole thing will be available. Just subscribe to the Growth Masterminds podcast, wherever you like to get podcasts, including YouTube, and you'll get the full thing. Have a great day, everybody, and see you soon in a Singular webinar, live stream, or blog post.
Thank you. Thanks, John.